Happy New Year! So, welcome to episode 2 of Double Blown. I'm your host, Takoda Madrona. You can find me on Instagram at Takoda.Madrona, Takoda.Madrona. And welcome to episode 2. I want to say Happy New Year, you guys. The first episode was in 2017, episode 2, 2018. So we're here. We made it. It's a dumb thing people say. We made it. We made it, you guys. We made it to 2018. We made it through the partying and the luxuries that are us being able to celebrate going into a fictional, just made-up time, line, and number that we use. And yeah, so we're in 2018, but honestly, I really do feel really good about this year. It's going to be super, super fun, and I'm very optimistic about this year. A lot of years not so optimistic, but great things happen anyway. But not everybody's always optimistic. But yeah, I mean, you remember 2012, so we didn't think we'd have a 2013. So, but I think 2018 is going to be awesome. And we're here. We're already here. We're in 2018. It already is awesome. And I want to apologize for my microphone last time. My microphone last episode kept smacking against my shirt. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that doesn't happen this time. I've got a clip to my shirt. I'm also going to get a new microphone very soon. So hopefully I'll have a new microphone. But for now, I've got this guy, and I like the sound quality. It works really well. But I definitely want to upgrade for sure and get this off of me. So we're here. Let's check out episode 2, what we got going on in episode 2. Again, I'll just talk a little bit about stores like I did last episode. I mentioned Northern Lights. They're awesome. So they right now, Northern Lights Vermont and Northern Lights Albany both have awesome selections, like really great selections of all glass, but also a really great selection of my glass. You should contact them if you're looking for anything. Pendants, rigs, anything. They even have a couple of my pipes, I believe, if they haven't sold out. I don't make too many of those. And yeah, you can contact them. What I really want to talk about with them is that they have right now one of my fountains, and I may have mentioned this in the first episode, but I want to mention it again. They have one of my first ever fountains. It's number 3, so number 3 of my tabletop fountain. So this guy is a recycler, and it's also a fountain. So it has a water pump in the back, and once the water pump is on, triggers a water cycle that will pour into a bunch of different dishes and then return back to the water chamber and the water motor and pumping it back. But simultaneously, you're also able to pull it and smoke it as a recycler. And personally, I think it's one of my favorite recyclers I've ever made. If you don't know what a recycler is, it's a bubbler or a bong that when it bubbles, the water that is bubbling gets pulled up a very small arm, like a straw, and gets pulled up this straw and shot into another chamber, and it spins around in said chamber and then returns back down to the bottom chamber of water. And this all happens within your piece as you're smoking. So I made that into a fountain. It's also a Klein recycler. If you don't know what a Klein recycler is, you can Google Klein bottle, and you'll see a type of seal inside of glass, and we've made rigs with said seal. So sometime in some episode, maybe I'll bring out a Klein recycler and show you guys, or you can just Google Klein recycler. You'll be able to find one and see what I'm talking about. But I made a Klein recycler, made it into a glass fountain, and Northern Lights currently has it on display. It's also made out of sunset slime. So sunset slime, it looks like this gorgeous green slime color and then changes when you move into different lights. So it changes into a much more sunsetty purple color when you move, pinks and purples when you move into another light with it. So I love that piece so much. I'm extremely proud of that piece, and I would definitely check out Northern Lights Vermont. If you're a local in Vermont or just so happen to make your way up here, go into that store or go online at on Instagram. You can find them at Northern Lights Vermont, or rather Northern Lights VT, just the letters VT. So Northern Lights VT. You can find them on Instagram. Check them out. You can also find a video of it on my Instagram, a video, picture, lots of them. Also videos and pictures of my 2 other fountains that I've made. You can find me on Instagram at Takoda.Madrona again. So I mentioned Northern Lights. Jay Friendly, I also want to mention, because Jay Friendly is a really great website that you can go to find all types of glass from all different artists. I know I mentioned them in the last episode. I want to mention them again. Jay Friendly, awesome website. So definitely go to jfriendly.com and check out all the glass there that they have going on. What do I have? I also wanted to mention Dave Chappelle. So Dave Chappelle, I mentioned him in the first episode, and I said that he's back. I hadn't seen his new special yet, but I've seen it, and he didn't disappoint. And I really recommend all of you going and watching Dave Chappelle's newest stand-up. He did 2 specials. I definitely recommend going and checking out all that he did and released. And I'm not sponsored by Dave Chappelle, obviously, and I'm also not like devoted or to him or any specific artist. But I truthfully, we waited a long time for Dave Chappelle to come back. All comedy fans and just fans of his waited for him to come back, and he came back and gave us 2 specials, and they're awesome. And he put a lot of work into these new ones, and they're just really cool. It's awesome. So definitely check them out. And also check out Your Mom's House podcast with Tom Segura and Christina Przitsky. They're awesome. Your Mom's House podcast, along with Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer is awesome. And Ari Shafir, Joe Rogan. He has the Joe Rogan Experience on YouTube and his website. But the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Mark Maron is great too. I watched Mark Maron for a long time. But who I also really want to point out is Owen Benjamin. Owen Benjamin is an amazing stand-up comedian, and he's so smart. And I really think that anybody can get something out of the material that he's putting out right now. And his podcast that he does called Why They Didn't Laugh. So definitely check out Owen Benjamin. He's also coming to Vermont, where I live, January 25th. So if you are local and you haven't gotten tickets yet, definitely get tickets for him. I'm excited. I already got my tickets. So definitely check out Owen Benjamin as well. We're going to jump in. So we're going to jump right into some questions now. The first question, and one of the questions I get a lot, is how much does it cost to start glass blowing? So how much does it cost to start glass blowing? I mean, the number can range so dramatically. So to give you a number, it's very hard, but I wanted to explain to you guys what it will take for you to start glass blowing yourself. It's not as hard as people think. Really, the number one thing is finding the place where you need to work. So that's the hardest place, or the hardest part of it, personally, I find, is finding the right place to work, because there's numbers of reasons that you can't work in a certain place. So what you need to work is you need at least one window, large window, very large window, or 2 windows, so you can create some sort of intake and outtake ventilation. So you need a nice ventilation system. So a garage can work if you can have the large door open, or you have windows in your garage, but you're also dealing with weather, so you want to make sure that you can stay warm. You might need to heat your area if you're not in a larger building. So you can look around. There are some places like large buildings that have that are renting out small spaces, to all types of different artists. You don't have to work somewhere where all glass blowers are working, you can work other places where other, welders or, I know a place that is this large building that they renovated, and it's just a bunch of rooms, and you can rent the rooms. And I also recommend being on the first floor. You're going to need to be on the first floor just because of your tanks. You're going to end up having gas tanks. So even if you're working really small scale, you're still going to end up with about a 300-pound tank minimum to work. So that's minimum, and that's one, and that's bare minimum you're going to have, unless you're going to start using oxygen concentrators, where you won't have to move your tank anymore. So you'll just have to have one big tank, and then oxygen concentrator or oxygen extractor, compressor, an oxygen compressor that can take oxygen from the air and compress it into your tank. That's another way of going about it. That can be quite expensive, but I can talk about that a little bit more. But mainly what you're dealing with is just trying to find a nice place that you can possibly keep warm, and that has ventilation. So you need a place that can be ventilated. That is huge. You also need a place that you're going to be able to get oxygen and propane and gas in and out of pretty easily. So, first floors need be. So you're looking for a first floor, a place with ventilation. So a garage works really well. You can rent a little studio. Like I said, somewhere like anywhere where they do automotive work or welding or woodwork, places like that, like those places are really good for glass blowing. So you want to look around there. You can work you can work in your garage. I have friends that work in their garages. I know lots of people that work in their garages. Garages are great if you do have one. If you don't, depending upon your landlord and your situation, possibly you can build something in your back porch, something like that, your or back area, your backyard. You can possibly build something like that, depending upon your landlord or your electrical system. Whatever your theoretical possibilities are for your home, you could theoretically build a home studio without a garage necessarily, but it's not necessarily recommended for a lot of different reasons. I would say, like I kind of mentioned, your electrical system, your landlord, your neighbors, your everything. You're probably going to want to find something a little bit better. But if you have a garage, that's fantastic. If you have some sort of area, maybe a friend has a garage, something like that. But you need somewhere where you can work. Maybe there are other glass blowers locally. If there's other glass blowers locally, that's where you want to get in. Possibly you can build a station in their studio, rent a place somewhere. There are possibilities there. There are a couple schools around. They're kind of, from what I've heard, kind of it's you have to be there for one. Sometimes you have to be accepted into these schools. Like Salem is a community college. Salem Community College, they're amazing. You can try to get in there. I've heard it's not super easy, but I bet you can get in there and try to work with Salem. And there's a couple other schools. There's the Borough School. I want to say Connecticut, I think they're in, but I could be completely wrong. But there's the Borough School, easily Googleable, Boro School, So to start glassblowing on your own, once you have a place, let's say you find the right place, you're going to need a ventilation system. So your ventilation system is going to be, it can range. So you can actually get away with a box fan. If you just put a box fan in your window and have that pumping out, and make sure that you have some sort of intake, a passive intake of some sort, that theoretically can work. You don't really necessarily want to do that, because what you're doing is you're replacing the air in the room, which is nice, but sometimes you're gonna have a lot of fumes and things. They can get caught in areas where your fan isn't doing the job. So you can get away with a box fan, but what you really want, what you're looking for ventilation, is a hood. So you need some sort of overhang hood that hangs over you, like the hood of a car or something, not that you'd use a hood of a car, but like a hood of a car is, a nice little hood over yourself. You want that to catch any gases, fumes, anything like that, and then from there you want a small a fan, a hole or a vent to suck up all of that gas and extract it out of the room, while a passive intake or some sort of intake fan is pumping an equal to amount of air back into the room, so that you're cycling the air out of the room as you're extracting the worst of the air and the heat. So it depends. You also got to, depending upon where you are, you got to realize that if you're in a cold area, your ventilation system's probably going to have to be a little bit better, because you're going to want to have a lot more control over your environment. If you are somewhere like Florida, or somewhere south, where it's a little bit warmer, maybe west, a little bit warmer, you really won't have to deal with that so much, because you can open up your windows, make sure you have lots of ventilation, and then you should just have one fan and a hood that is taking away all of that gas. So you want to get rid of all of the gas, the fumes, the silver fumes that you're burning, all metal fumes that you're burning in your glass. You want to get rid of all of that by having the hood to capture everything and then suck it out. So the fan, you can build your own system with some sort of little fan, and then taking some like heat-proof tubing, like what you would use for your dryer unit or something. You can go to Lowe's, Home Depot, get ventilation tubes. So that nice solid metal ventilation tube you can use to extract the air and the heat and the gas and everything. But you want to connect that wherever you want to be sucking away that stuff. You need to connect that then to some sort of fan. Now the fan, as far as price goes, you're gonna just want to look around. You're gonna want to look around. You can get one from $50 to $600, thousands of dollars. You can get really, really, really nice fans or lesser nice fans. So it depends on the noise. So you can go really low quality, like I said, like box fan, almost quality fan, where it's not going to deal with a lot of heat. So it's gonna shut down on you if you pump too much heat into this thing. So you can't really necessarily use a box fan long term, depending upon your setup. So you're going to want to find something that's a little nicer and can take a little bit more heat. There are a lot of fans that do that. I can possibly, in another episode, I will actually look up a list of names and such. I haven't done that ahead of time. I have just my own, but that one was given to me by somebody, and is unique. It's not easy to find, but you can find models of them. So what you're looking for, you can find them at Home Depot, Lowe's. Just go to Home Depot, Lowe's, you're looking for some sort of ventilation system. There's lots of them. And you find that fan, your intake. Your intake can be any type of fan. It's not going to be dealing with really high temperatures at all. And so you can just take a box fan, if you will, and throw it into a window, have that be your intake, or you could just have nothing and make sure that you have a hole in your wall. Just make sure that you have something that is allowing air to come back into the room while you're extracting air out of the room, because it is possible to take more air out of a room than you're allowing into it, and that can become problematic. You don't want to do that. So you want to allow air to come into the room. Otherwise, you're not even going to be pulling out the air that you think you can. You need to be allowing air into the room in order for you to pull air out of it. So you need some sort of passive or non-passive intake fan. That can be like a box fan. The other one just needs to be able to take a little bit of heat, because you're going to be working with some really hot air. So it's got to be able to take that heat. So any metal fans, that's really what you're looking for, some sort of metal fan unit. There's a lot of them out there. It's hard for me to just give you one that's great, but you're looking at probably with a fan, because we're talking about pricing. Let's say you're going to spend about $200 on a fan. Let's say $200 on a fan, a nice fan. Let's say $300 for the whole ventilation system setup. You could definitely go way more for sure, but let's say like $300 for your ventilation system, really, really, really minimal. And so your ventilation system's now set up. Your hood itself, I built my hood and my table all kind of together in one, and it was about $300 itself. So it's about a $300 table and hood and everything, because you're going to need some. You can either do it out of metal, like sheet metal and metal bars, or you can do it out of wood. Either way, it's probably going to be about the same amount of money. And but when you use wood, you're instead of the sheet metal or anything, you're going to need to use something that's non-flammable to cover everything, like the surface you're working on, the backboards, your hood, everything. So if your hood isn't metal, you could use sheet metal for your hood. That's what a lot of people do, is use sheet metal. Take a big piece of sheet metal, bend that down, and bend the edges of your sheet metal down. Take that big piece of sheet metal, get that up top using bars of metal, or there's lots of different ways you can do that. You're just going to check out Home Depot and Lowe's and things like that. So you're going to need something non-flammable for all those parts. If you're using wood and you're not using sheet metal, so what I use is it's basically what is it called? So it's not drywall. I don't use drywall, but it's this rock substance that you put down before you put down tiles. So it's almost like a primer for tiles. So it's this rock substance, though. It's almost like sheetrock, but it's this hard rock substance. You can buy it in big sheets. So it's basically just pressed powdered rock, and you can buy it in sheets, and that's just non-flammable, or rather flame retardant. So it will burn. It kind of smells a little funky, but not really. It's not bad at all. But it doesn't really burn either. You have to put very, very hot glass on it, and it will never light on fire, but you can turn it black. But it doesn't even decay or anything. It's a nice solid rock substance. So that's what I'll use. I'll try to think of what it's actually called, but it's just the sheet rock that you put underneath tile work. So that's very easily found at Home Depot or Lowe's. So like I said, I spent about $300 on my hood and my table. So you could say, let's say $600 for the vent, the hood, the table. Then let's say you're going to need your kiln. So once you have the place you're working with, and that's not including the rent. If you need to rent an area, you got to include the rent into glass blowing. But let's say there's no rent. We're not talking about rent right now. We're just talking about you found a place, rent is taken care of. Now we have to find, we did the vent. Vent's about $300. Let's do the we did the vent, we did the hood, we did the table, all that. Let's say about $600. You definitely could probably pull it off with less. Probably should spend more, but let's say about $600 so far. Now you need your kiln. Now kiln, that can range. What you're looking for with kilns, the biggest mistake I see people do is they look on Craigslist, they find kilns. What they do is they find things like old crucible styled kilns, which are top load kilns. They're these big tubes, they almost look like big barrels. So you're not looking for a barrel looking piece, so they're big barrels and the top opens up. So that's not what you're going to want for like pipe making, pendant making, the small stuff. That's what you're going to want for larger stuff. More commonly, those are used for pottery, those big top loaders. They're used a lot more commonly for pottery. They get very hot, and they're just they're very large. So they're great, and you can find them for like $400, but they don't work for what you want. A lot of them won't get to the temperature you need because a lot of them are old or don't work. Some of them are just really old, and they don't have digital monitors or anything, or not that you really necessarily need a digital thermostat, but it's nice to have a digital thermostat instead of an analog thermostat. So those are like $400. People commonly come to me and show me those. They're not the top loaders aren't what you want. So the top loading kilns are not what you want. So what you do want is what's called a garage door. So you want a garage door or some sort of side loading door kiln. Anything that is a garage door or side loading door kiln, that's what you're looking for. Something that you can load into the side and there's a door. Preferably not a door that opens up like a car door, but a door that opens up like a garage door. That's more commonly what you want, but people get away with the ones that open up like a car door. There are some that open up like that. You can use them. You're going to want to, a lot of the time with those ones, you're going to want to use a lot of tin foil or something to cover up the edges when you have a blow tube or punty sticking out. So a blow tube or punty, for those that don't know, a blow tube is a handle and a punty is a handle that are cold and hold hot glass that you're working on. So you have to hold on to something when you have 4,000 degree glass in your hand. You need to hold on to something. That's called a blow tube or a punty. It needs to stay connected to your piece. So when that's connected to your piece, it needs to hang outside of the kiln a little bit in order for you to have the hot glass in the kiln and the cold glass outside the kiln. That's why you want the garage door. So the garage door can be open just ever so slightly so that you can get something inside of there and have it sit there comfortably and not be pumping hot air out. Also, the top loading kilns are really bad because you open it up in the top, all that heat pumps out vertically. It's very difficult for you to look inside and grab anything. So that's, again, why they're really more commonly used as a crucible for melting pots of glass, which I'm not an expert on, but I can get into a little bit more in the future. But their big top loaders are used so that they can make puddles of glass inside. You can reach in with a big tube, pull out some of that glass. They're also commonly called crucibles. But yeah, so as I was saying, you want the garage doors. You want that garage door. Now, I would say the top companies that you're looking at, AIM, AIM, AIM is a fantastic company. But recently, Skutt, S-K-U-T-T, S-K-U-T-T, Skutt, incredible company. I love their kilns. They're some of my favorite kilns. Skutt is fantastic. AIM is awesome, A-I-M, kilns. Again, kiln is spelled K-I-L-N, if you didn't know. But, so, you're going to want to check out AIM and AIM and Skutt. There's also Paragon. So Paragon has made a lot of pottery kilns in the past as well, but they also are making a lot of glass blowing, lamp working kilns. So Paragon has some awesome kilns as well. What you're looking at with Paragon, I own a Paragon. I think it's great. I think it's a 1050 or something, a Paragon 1050, 1040 or something like that. So what is a Paragon? They're commonly blue. If you don't know, Paragons are commonly blue kilns, but they come in silver and all other types of colors. Skutt is commonly red. But Skutt, AIM, Paragon, and then there's a couple other miscellaneous ones. But those three are the best companies I know of. Paragon, P-A-R-A-G-O-N, Paragon. Paragon kilns, so mine is about a foot, is about a cube foot. But it's a little less than that. It's about 7 inches by 7 inches by 10 inches. So it's quite solid. You can get a lot of stuff done in that. You can actually see in my Instagram that you can make some quite large pieces in that amount of space, because if you multiply that space, it's quite a large cube that you're working with. As far as working with long bongs, that's harder. But like I mentioned a little bit in the first episode, I'm not working with a lathe, so I'm not working on big, long tube bongs. I'm working on more sculpture pieces that are on the smaller side, but they're still quite large. If you try to hold a piece up horizontally and it's already about 10 inches by 7 inches, it's quite a large piece. But you can get a Paragon for larger stuff. It's about I think it's about 14 inches, and then its height is about 5 inches, and the depth is 7 inches, something along the lines of that. So it's a little shorter than mine. It's a lot less depth, but it's way wider. So that works really well for people too. It depends on what you're aiming to make. You know, a lot of people, they kick on these big kilns, but they only use this much space in the kiln for a couple pipes in a day, and that's such a waste of energy. So when I need to use a large kiln, I just ask a friend in town, and I'll try to use their kiln. Or, you know, you can get away with doing some stuff, extending your kiln a little bit with tin foil if you need to make a mouthpiece a little bit bigger. Let's say I need to make a 13-inch piece. You know, I can make things work sometimes with some angling, but no, you can just ask a friend, really, mainly, if you need to use a much larger kiln. You know, and it really depends on the piece. If you're making pieces that are that large, you really probably should be working with a kiln that is much larger, and a workspace that's much larger. So, and you're probably going to be working with a lathe. You should be, I mean, honestly. But you definitely can make those bongs. The only issue, really a big reason why a lot of people like me don't make bongs is because it's just hard to compete with people that have lathes. You know, I can't really compete with the prices, so you know, you really have to compete with your artwork, and to throw my artwork to something that large, it's just kind of difficult. And you know, yeah, I guess that's all it is. You know, so to make clear bongs is my point. That competition, the clear bongs, is it's hard to compete in that market with somebody that does have a lathe, that does have massive resources, and let's say you know, India, where you know they're, like people commonly say, are paying people pennies on the dollar to make something, and you know, that's why people constantly talk about Chinese glass and things like that, where they're making cheap quality pieces, and they're really cheap, but they're the same thing. You know, it's you know, just clear bong. So yeah, so if you're not making that, you can really get away with something smaller, but you can definitely get away with something much larger. If you're going for something a little bit larger, I would go with Scut or AIM. Now, Scut is awesome. They develop their kilns just for glass blowers, really. You know, they're fantastic kilns. I don't know so much on the pricing of Scuts, but I want to say that they're pretty similar. Let me see if I can possibly look something up right now while I do this. But so I don't know too much information on Scuts as far as pricing, but I know that they do offer many different variations they offer a couple variations in size, which are really nice. So Scut has a lot of, right now I'm looking at all the different Scut kilns. Now Scut does a lot of top loader kilns. They have so many kilns here. But what I'm really looking at they're called scarabs. So the Scut scarab, you've got this one right here. You got the Scut scarab. Can't see how big it is. Hold on. The Scut scarab, but we're looking at 1,500. So just to give you a reference for kind of the size kiln, a little bit bigger than what I was saying, probably about a square foot, so 12 inches, 14 inches. For a little bit larger of a kiln, you're looking about 12 inches, 14 inches, you're looking about $1,500. So actually, I don't think that's completely correct. Let me see the dimensions of this. So let me get back to mine. So my kiln, Paragon, that was price. My kiln is 10 inches by 7 inches by 7 inches. And I apologize, I'm reading while I'm talking to you guys. I probably shouldn't be doing that. So Scut makes a number of awesome kilns. Let's get back to the Paragons that I was talking about. You can get them from $800 to $1,700. There's a lot of different Scut kilns out there. or Paragon kilns, but the Paragon kilns that I talked about two Paragon kilns, the longer Paragon kiln and the square Paragon kiln that I have, cube Paragon kiln that I have. So the longer Paragon kiln that I was talking about, that's about $800 to $1,000. My Paragon kiln is about $1,200 to $1,300. So it depends on where you get them, but that is approximately what those run. So you're looking at about $800 to $1,200 for that guy. For this guy, now the scut kilns, I, for some reason, cannot get the dimensions on the scut kiln, which I don't, doesn't say much about this website. I do not like the fact that that's not right in front of you, because that is a huge factor in kilns, is how big these guys are. So I don't know why it's not telling me how big it is. But I'm going to say, just from my recollection at trade shows, from seeing these things and seeing the one that my friend has, this one's just a little bit bigger than mine. So it's about 12 inches, 10 inches, 10 inches. Maybe it's about 12 inches, 12 inches, 12 inches. But that looks about $1,500. And the other one that's much larger, which is probably about 2 feet by a foot and a half, that is $3,000. So you can get really any size. There's just so many different ones, and they all come in different amounts. So what we were looking at already, we looked at the ventilation for $300. The table and the setup, the hood, $300. Now we're looking at the kiln. Kiln can vary. Let's say you get a great deal, $800 to $1,000 to $1,200, $1,500. Let's say you spend $1,000 on that minimum. Let's say $1,000. You're looking at about $1,600 now. So $1,600 to get that kiln set up. Now let's talk about torches. So torches, my recommendation with torches is that you get the largest torch you can afford. That's not because you want the largest flame, but it's because the largest torch has the most variations in flames. So you want a very, very tiny flame to very, very large flame. You want everything in between. So you always want to get the largest torch that you can get. Now, I started on something called a major minor Nortel. So Nortel is a company. I'm gonna talk about a couple different torch companies. Nortel is a torch company. They make some awesome torches. I heard that a lot of their first torches were all made out of just like basic plumbing material, which I find super funny. I still have mine. It's around here somewhere. I think it's in the back, but. I have my major minor, and that is an amazing torch. It's got a larger torch on the bottom and then a smaller torch on top. Now that's great, and you can swap them, turn them on and off, and do everything. That's great. In the beginner, it's a great beginner torch. I did a lot of stuff. I worked on that torch for 2 years. The first 2 or 3 years that I worked on just that torch before I upgraded to the torch that I currently have. Now, if you can afford a bigger torch, if you can afford a better torch, if you can afford the torches I'm about to talk about, I'd go with those. But if you can't and you want the cheapest, best torch that you can get, Red Max. So it's hard to find a Nortel major minor, but the Red Max is the new Nortel major minor. So mine's super, super old, impossible to find. You're looking for the Red Max bench burner. So the Nortel Red Max, and it has the premix top fire. That's what they call it, the top fire, the little torch on top of the big torch. So what you got here, it looks like you can find them from $500 to $900 and anywhere in between. And actually, it looks like I found one for $1,900 for no reason. I don't buy that. I don't know why you would do that. That sounds ridiculous. So I don't know what's going on there, but it looks like you can find them for about $500 to $800. So anywhere in between there. Now, if you can upgrade, what I would say is go with a. Why am I blanking right now? A GTT. So a GTT torches. That's what I have. So I started right after the Nortel. I used a Phantom for a while. One of my friend's Phantoms. I used a Phantom and got used to the Phantom. Now the difference between the Nortel and the Phantoms is the Phantom has 3 nozzles. So the 3 nozzles that it uses to turn on, they all act very differently to give you different flames. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is the different flames that you can get with these torches. So that's why I really like the GTT torches. It's Glass Torch Technologies. So Glass Torch Technologies, or GTT torches. You're also looking for Nortel. So GTT torches, they, like I said, have crazy variations in their flames, much more so than what you're going to find with a Nortel. You can find the big flame, the small flame, and change them a little bit, but for the most part, that's what you got. With the GTTs, you're going to be able to change the width of your flame much more. So how skinny and wide your flame is and how powerful it is and things like that, you have much more control over that, much more control over a bunch of different aspects. So I would really recommend getting either the Phantom. I would say the Phantom is your best bet. That's your next lowest best bet. They also have a smaller torch called the Lynx. So the Lynx is going to be very similar priced to the Red Max, but it's much less good. So don't go with the Lynx. Just don't buy a Lynx. Like a Lynx is just so tiny you're going to want to upgrade it very soon. Like it's okay. Like I've seen people do amazing things with a Lynx. Like don't get me wrong, you can do unbelievably cool things with a Lynx, but don't get a Lynx. Like it's just too small. So a Lynx is called LYNX. It's great, like look it up, it's cool, but what a Lynx is the center flame or the small flame of the Nortel, or rather the Phantom and all the other ones. So there's also one in between, which I also don't recommend getting. It's not that great. It's called the Cheetah. Don't get that one either. I'm not even going to bother explaining it, but don't get the Cheetah. The Cheetah is kind of like a mixture of the Nortel and the Lynx. I don't like it. So, but it's not at all. I don't want to make it seem like there's 2 stages. There's not. It's just a bigger Lynx, which again, it's like you're just going to want to upgrade because it just doesn't work the same. And also the Cheetah doesn't have the 3rd nozzle, I don't think. It doesn't really work the way you would want it to. No, it does have the 3rd nozzle, but what it does, it doesn't have, like, you can't get a small flame. You can't get a center flame. So don't get the Lynx, don't get the Cheetah, get the Red Max, or get the Phantom. So the Phantom is $1,200. So get the $1,200 Phantom, or you can get the Red Max at $800, or you can get the Lynx at $500 to $800, depending upon where you get it, how you get it. You can get things used, you can get things for a deal, things like that. So you can get the Phantom, that's $1,200. Red Max, $800. Or my torch is I think just one step up from the Phantom, which is the Mirage. So there's the Mirage, and then there's a couple others above that as well. So I would say if you can afford it, get the Mirage. But if you can't, get the Phantom. They're awesome. They're really, really, really killer. I can't tell you how much I love my torch. Like it's become a part of me, and once you get yours, and if you start glass blowing, or you probably know what I'm talking about, but it really does become a part of you. I've heard the metaphor used, a Jedi to a lightsaber. It is definitely a part of you, and it's yours. So yeah, just think about it. Think about what you want to do. Google a little bit, see, but I really recommend getting the Phantom or the Red Max. Both of those are great torches. You won't have to upgrade for a long time. And but if you get the Mirage, you won't have to upgrade for a long, long, long time. I don't have to upgrade. I'm okay doing what I'm doing. I would like to have a larger torch. My goal would be to have the Delta Magnum. So there's the GTT Delta Magnum, and that's $4,000. You can get it on sale right now for 3,800, 3,600, I think. I really, really want that. That's like a dream, but it's just too big. I don't need it. So the difference with the Phantom? The Phantom is a two-stage, just like mine, the Mirage. The Phantom two-stage means it's two torches in one, but instead of having one torch on the bottom and a smaller torch on top, what you have instead is both those torches together. So you have a large flame, but then if you turn off your large flame, you have this smaller flame in the center. So it's like having a small torch, and then they build a bigger torch around the other torch. If you're just listening and not watching on YouTube, what I'm doing is I'm taking one of my hands and wrapping it around the other one as it's fisted. So as my one hand is in a fist, I wrap around my other hand, and that's demonstrating what it looks like when you have a smaller torch inside of a larger torch. So I have this smaller torch within a larger torch, and when I have that, you're able to turn off nozzles and things, and you can get a large flame, and then it goes smaller, and it enlarges and shrinks depending upon what you do, instead of having to switch from a smaller torch to a larger torch. You also have many different variations. Like I said, you can make it skinnier or wider. You can do all sorts of things. The Delta Magnum has 3 stages, so it has 3 torches all built into one. So you've got a smaller torch, a bigger torch, and a bigger torch all wrapped into itself, like it's a Cinnabon of fire, if you will. But that's not quite accurate because that's all twisted up. This is much more like stacking cups, maybe something like that, or like those Russian dolls. So it's kind of like the Russian dolls, one inside of the other. So we got something like that going on with the GTTs. Then you got something called the Carlisle. Now I'm not an expert with the Carlisle, but the Carlisle is much more like the Nortel, where it's only got 2 nozzles with propane and oxygen instead of 3 nozzles. And the 2 nozzles system, just like the Nortel, feeds into one torch like the GTT torches, but you can get a small flame. So lots of people like that. So it's kind of a mixture between the GTTs and the Nortels. So it's got the 2 nozzle action going on with the cartels, but it's got the one torch, the one firing nozzle on the end that actually expels the gas and fire. So Carlisles are really great. I can't really tell you the pricing on Carlisles because there's a bunch of them, and I don't really have too much knowledge on them. But as far as, because I don't own one, I've never really used one, I can tell you that GTT torches, you're looking at a GTT torch. The Phantoms are 1,200, and the Mirage is 1,700, and the Delta Mag is about 3,800. Now the Lynx, I think, is about 400. Possibly you might have to get it for a little bit more. You could maybe get it for about 500, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit less than 400. And the Carlisles, I'm looking up right now, it looks like for a Carlisle, the smallest Carlisle I can find looks like a lot like the Lynx, so I recommend do not get this one, but it looks like $200 for the smallest one, but it doesn't have any of the cords or anything attached to it. So what you're looking at here, I have also another Carlisle rack, CC rack and pinion, 2 inlet, number 3 center fire. So that's got 4 nozzles. So the Carlisles can have two stages as well, just like the GTTs. So they are working on just two nozzles where it's oxygen and propane, but they can have multiple stages, allowing them to have more nozzles to them. So so this one has four nozzles to it, and it seems like it's about the same size as the Phantom, possibly about the same size and power as the Mirage, my torch. So very similar, and that's $1,680. I don't see any others, but I think that gives a good reference of what we're looking for as far as price. So we worked on the ventilation and the studio the table itself. We're going to land with $600 there. We're going to land with $1,000 for your kiln. And now we're looking at, let's say, $800 to $1,200 for your torch. So let's round that to $1,000 again. So you're looking at about $2,600 now. So now, once you have all that, now you just need your oxygen lease, so you need to get a lease on an oxygen tank. Something not everybody knows is that it's illegal in most states, if not all, to own an oxygen tank bigger than a medical oxygen tank, which is about this big. If you're listening audio and not listening on and not watching on YouTube, I'm extending my hands out about 2 feet or so. They're about 2-foot tanks that you can own, but anything bigger than that, you're going to have to get a lease for. Luckily, leases are not expensive. In the state that I'm in, a lease for one T tank, so a T tank is about a 300-pound tank, and it's about 5 feet tall, maybe a little bit less. About 5 feet, maybe a little bit less. So, it's about maybe the width, it's about the width of a person if you really squished them. No, it's about half the width of maybe your waist. Maybe about 2/3 the width of an average person's waist. So it's not huge, but it does the job, and you can get a couple of those if you need to. So a lease on a T tank is about $50 for a year. So every year you have $50. So, it's $50, then $50 to fill your tank. So let's just throw $100 onto your $2,600 for the oxygen just to get started. That's going to be a continual bill that you have. The oxygen is just going to be a continual bill that you have bi-monthly, depending upon how much you use it. If you're using a lot of oxygen all the time, you're going to be spending a lot more money. If you're not using a lot of oxygen all the time, you're not going to be spending a lot of money. So I know people that spend probably about $400 a month when they're working almost every day, hours a day. I'd say if this is a hobby of yours, or if you're working like a relatively decent amount, a couple days a week, let's say you're going to spend $200 a month or $100 a month on oxygen. And that's just going to be a continual thing. Propane, luckily, is very cheap. And you buy your propane tank in any normal store. I'm going to go back, before I start talking about propane, I'm going to go back to the oxygen tank. So the oxygen tank, you can get, we're going to say about $100 start off. And you can also get liquid oxygen. So liquid oxygen, I've heard it's about, I don't have a liquid oxygen tank actually, but it's about $300 I've heard for a full liquid oxygen tank. And that can last you a long time. They're huge. They're 4 or 5 T tanks in one. I actually don't know the math on that, but they're a lot. It's very big. It's probably about the height of me. It's probably, I'm 5'8", so maybe it's a little bit shorter than I am. Yeah, it's a little bit shorter than I am, but it's very wide. Like I could fit inside of one. It's very wide. It's a big container, and those need to be transferred in by trucks and wheeled in. They're quite heavy. That's a not a K tank. Yeah, that's a K tank. So that's a K tank. So a K tank is liquid oxygen. It's a much larger tank. You can get that as well. You could get one of those, and if it's just your hobby, you could have it for 6 months. I bet you could have it for a year. I bet. I mean, they're huge. So if you're just doing this as a hobby, it's not gonna, But I would recommend some T tanks or something. And you can do more research into this once you start doing it. But so say about 2,700. So now you got oxygen. Let's throw propane in there. That's going to be like $50 to get a propane tank. To fill it, to buy a tank and fill it, $50. So 2,750. Now you're looking at materials. So materials, and maybe some like tubing. Let's throw another $50 on there for tubing, for your torch and everything, because your torch doesn't come with tubing and it can't just plug into your stuff. So let's throw another $50 onto the thing for tubing. Let's throw another $150 on there for your regulators. You're going to need some regulators for your oxygen and propane. Oxygen and propane don't just pump out the way you want it to. You're going to have regulators to tell it how much pressure that it can pump out. So you're going to need little regulators that you screw in, and those are about $75 a piece. Let's throw $150. Let's throw $200 on top of the $2,750 that we had, giving us $2,950, almost hitting that $3,000. And then just material. Then that is endless. That's just whatever you want to spend. So throw $200 would probably get you a lot of material. That would get you plenty of material. $50 would probably get you enough to get going. So let's say $50 or let's say $200. So we're at $3,150. Let's make it $3,100 and say it's $150 so I can keep track easier. $3,100. So $3,100, and we have just about everything, but we need tools. So you're going to need some glass tools. You don't only need your torch, you're going to need some tools. So you're going to want to buy a reamer, a bowl push, possibly some tweezers, and possibly some pliers. Some of the things that I use, you can just find around the house. Butter knife, pliers, spoon, any knives. All that stuff I just find around the house. Things you're going to need to buy: reamer. A reamer is a coned object made from graphite. So graphite is a substance, it's a rock substance that accepts heat change really well. And it doesn't break down very easily. So you can heat it up really, really fast and really, really hot, and you're good to go. So we use it to shape glass or marver glass. So marver is the verb of morphing glass with graphite or some sort of pad or object. So you're going to take graphite. Graphite you can get in many, many different shapes. Flat, like plate shapes, flat table, tile shapes, or you can get them as tools. So the tool that I'm describing is a reamer, cone shaped. So you're going to need it's a triangular cone shape. You're going to use that for a number of things. You're going to need a bowl push. The name is self-explanatory. You are going to be pushing bowls into your pipes. So the part where you pack, you're going to have to push that in somehow. You're going to have to make that shape somehow. It's a tool. You're going to buy that tool. A tungsten pick. So if you've ever seen it on TV, somebody chip ice at a party, it's a metal pick. So it's just like a pen that's made of metal, but it's a little pick, and it's made of tungsten metal. So tungsten metal is a metal that can take a lot of heat. So you take that tungsten metal and you can use that to morph glass sometimes. So we're going to take, so we got a tungsten pick, a reamer, a bowl push. You might need a graphite pad. So let's throw this down. So we got a graphite pad, $50. A reamer, $25. Bowl push, $25. So you got another $100 right there. So let's throw another $100 onto $3,100. We got $3,200. Now you're going to need a graphite paddle. So it's like a ping pong paddle, except it's made from graphite. So you're going to need a graphite paddle. You're not necessarily going to need a graphite paddle, but you're going to want a graphite paddle. So you're gonna need a graphite paddle. Let's say that I think that's another 25, 30 bucks. Let's say 40 bucks because I think they're pretty expensive. So 40 bucks. Let's throw a tungsten pick in there. You could probably get one for pretty cheap. Let's say 10 bucks. Probably more like $20. So we're looking at let's say $50. Throw that on top of there. 32.50. I think we're at 32.50 for those tools. And then, you can just buy more tools. There's lots of tools that you can buy. So let's throw another like 50 bucks on there. You don't really need it, but let's throw another 50 bucks on there. 3,300. At $3,300 and all the stuff that I explained, theoretically, that's probably everything that you'll need to glassblow. And from there, you're going to need a teacher, because that is really the most important part. And I will tell you, I spent months and months and months of my life practicing and trying to figure things out that would have taken me hours to do if I had an instructor there or some sort of teacher that had done it before. Seriously, it's exponentially helpful to find somebody that has been there and done that, and you can learn from them. So really, please go and find somebody to learn from. But in general, it looks like we landed at 3,300 for how much it would cost to start glass blowing. As you saw, there's a lot of variation from what I was talking about. So, we can land a lot less than that, maybe 2,500, or go a little bit more, 4,000. It depends. So, but that's basically it. And then you're off, and you just go for it. And then from there, there's marketing and what you're making and who you're selling it to, and hopefully I can help you guys out with that too, if you guys have any questions. So email me at doubleblownpodcast@gmail.com. You can email me there and ask me any questions you want to know, and I'll be happy to answer them. It looks like we actually went over time a little bit. We're actually at an hour and 5 minutes or something, so I can't believe time went by that fast. So actually, I'm gonna move on and get right into saying goodbye. So we're ready for episode 3 already. This is so much fun, and I love just giving you guys any and all information I have to give, and I hope some of this helps. If you guys have any questions about what I said, again, email me, doubleblownpodcast@gmail.com, or just find me on Instagram at Takoda.Madrona, and you can Google me, Takoda.Madrona, sorry. You can Google me, Takoda Madrona, TakodaMadrona. I'm very Googleable. It's a unique name, so and that is my real name. So Google me and write in, please. Let me know what you think, and let me know if I can make the podcast better. If you have any questions, anything like that, please. And again, I hope some of this helped, and I'm psyched for this new year. Happy New Year, you guys. And I will see you in episode 3.